Deepwatch helps secure the digital economy by protecting and defending enterprise networks everywhere, every day. Deepwatch leverages its highly automated cloud-based SOC platform backed by a world-class team of experts who monitor, detect, and respond to threats on customers' digital assets 24/7, 365. Many of the world's leading brands rely on Deepwatch's managed detection and response. Visit securityweekly.com/deepwatch to learn more. CyberArk is at the forefront of demonstrating how identity security can help prevent and block a ransomware infection before it brings a business down. CyberArk offers protection along every aspect of the attack chain, from the initial intrusion all the way through data exfiltration. Whether you are proactively building your security program or need to restore trust in your IT environment, CyberArk has the experience to help. Learn how at securityweekly.com/CyberArk. Is your team ready to defend against the latest cyber threats? Validate human cyber defense readiness with Rangeforce. Sharpen your team's capabilities with a cloud-based platform that takes a real-world, continuous approach to cybersecurity skills development. Rangeforce empowers cyber defense readiness at scale. With hundreds of interactive modules, learning paths mapped to industry frameworks, skill assessments, and team-based defensive threat exercises. Visit securityweekly.com/Rangeforce to learn more. And welcome back to Enterprise Security Weekly. Security Weekly listeners save $100 on your RSA Conference 2022 full conference pass. The RSA Conference, if you don't already know, there's probably no hotel rooms. Tickets are like $3,000, you know. I'm not sure what you're doing if you're not already out there, but say you already have a hotel and a ticket, but you still haven't bought your full conference pass yet, we can still give you a discount code. You can still save $100 on that pass. That code is 52UCyber. You can go to securityweekly.com/RSAC2022 and use that code, which is, again, 52, the letter U, cyber. And we hope to see you there. We will be there. Both SC Media will be there, and Security Weekly will be as well. And do you have a specific guest or topic that you want us to cover in one of the shows? Submit your suggestions for guests by visiting securityweekly.com/guests and completing the form. We review suggestions monthly and we'll reach out to you once reviewed. And I just went through all my suggestions in there. I had about 15 earlier this week, and I cleared out my queue, and there was some good stuff in there. So thank you for that. All right, now for the Enterprise Security Weekly news. You can check out securityweekly.com/ESW275 to see the list of stories that we're going to talk about today. We don't always get to all of them. I put some funny, I don't intend them to be funny. It's just me being me, you know, just being honest when I put commentary in some of this stuff. So there's some extra stuff there that you might not hear in the podcast. So worth checking there if you need a link or want to check out what we're talking about this week. Some interesting stats from the Security Funded Newsletter's April roll-up. So there's a lot of sources that I use to pull together stories here, and we do focus a lot on the business side of security, on the funding, the acquisitions, new products. We focus a lot on the vendor side, enterprise side as well. You know, it's in the name of the podcast. But yeah, it's been interesting with this huge economic downturn. You know, everything's down. You know, people have been criticizing individual companies, but it's really it's the whole market. You know, the public market, private markets, raising funds, crypto, everything's feeling it. And but it was interesting that funding was actually up to $1.9 billion in April from somewhere around 1.2 in March. So we actually saw an increase there. And that'll actually kind of play into what we're seeing with our news stories today. But US-based companies only accounted for a little over half of all the funding in April, which I found interesting. And the other half of that was mostly Switzerland and Israel, with Switzerland Swiss-based companies raising more than double what the Israeli companies were. So that's interesting. Usually Israel is always kind of second place right after the US in terms of cybersecurity companies. But this particular month, we did see more going to Swiss-based startups, which is interesting.
What companies are in Switzerland? I've I don't think I've come across a security company that's in Switzerland. It's always Israel or here.
Yeah, yeah. No, there have been several. Like if we, I know
That's interesting.
we've had several come up in the show. Let me see if we've got at least one from last week. I mean, this was April, so maybe I'm not going to find it last week. No, yeah. I mean, if you went back through some of the shows in April, you probably find some. But yeah, these are all fairly early stage startups,
Hmm.
so it might be part of a new trend. Maybe Switzerland did something to attract startups. I don't know if any of the tax laws or anything like that changed there. Obviously, for a lot of privacy reasons, there's a lot of good reasons to base your company in Switzerland, like Proton Mail,
Right.
wasn't there by chance, right? um, so yeah, what we're seeing this week is interesting, and it could have nothing to do with the larger market forces, but what we're seeing this week is not a whole lot of money in funding. Like it's rare that we don't see like near $1 billion in funding every week, and we don't even have. I don't think we even have 100 million this week.
Yeah, not
Um,
even close.
yeah, yeah, and so it could be the market downturn, and then we're seeing a ton of acquisitions, which generally a downturn like this, becomes a buyer's market. Lot of companies might be cheap to buy. They might be in trouble due to the downturn. Maybe they weren't able to raise funding. So they had to look for an exit. There's it doesn't seem like coincidence that we have more acquisitions than funding this week, but it totally could be because RSA is a factor too. A lot of companies will be saving their announcements about their funding for usually like the week before RSA. You don't want to do it the week of RSA because there's too much noise. Nobody will see it.
Hmm.
But I'll be really interested to see what kind of funding announcements we have next week because next week is the week before RSA.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I didn't actually notice that companies tend to announce funding, the week before big conferences like that. But it makes
Mm-hmm.
sense. It makes sense why they would do it.
Yeah, they used to do it the week of, and then everybody did it, and it got too noisy, so then it would get kind of spread out, to the week before, maybe a couple weeks before. We're not seeing a whole lot this week, so I'm assuming there's a lot of stuff getting saved up for next week. But yeah, so big acquisition. Broadcom is buying VMware for $61 billion. One of the biggest deals, I think, just smaller than that Activision deal. Was that Microsoft and Activision? Am I remembering that right?
Yeah,
That was like
that's who it
68
was.
or something like that.
I don't remember how much it was. It was a lot.
Yeah.
That's didn't Broadcom buy Symantec a couple years ago?
Broadcom bought CA, and I think so Symantec got broken up into Norton
Mm,
LifeLock, which merged with Avast or Avira, like one of those European AV vendors. And then the enterprise side of it, I want to say that let's see. I want to say that you're right that it was Broadcom, which I think has CA under it.
I wonder how the product offering for VMware will change with this acquisition. I always wonder that, when companies get bought out, well, what's going to change with their product? Is the quality going to be the same?
Yeah. Yeah, Broadcom operates its enterprise security business under the Symantec brand. Yeah, they purchased it from Norton LifeLock in 2019. Yep. So
Hmm.
they got the enterprise assets of Symantec. Yep. So that's so VMware and Symantec will be under the same roof. Interesting. Yeah, and I think VMware is infinitely more interesting than the semantic piece of that. Because VMware has some security stuff in there as well. Obviously a very big. Even with the move to cloud, VMware is still very big. Still
Yeah.
a lot of VM use out there.
You still got to manage your on-prem environments somehow, you
Yeah.
know.
Then the other big acquisition was Mantec International, which I had forgotten that they existed. I hadn't really seen any news around them in a while. They had some products and services. I think they sold off part of them a while back, and it was one of those acquired by a company that was acquired that was acquired. I don't remember the chain of companies involved in that deal, but Mantec has been split up and divided up a couple times. But yeah, I think this is some products and then some. I think it's mostly services because part of no, that was Raytheon. That was Raytheon that combined with WebSense to create ForcePoint. So not Mantec. But yeah, still a sizable security services organization. Got picked up for 4.2 billion, and
All
I'd say
cash.
if I were to guess, like everybody's got an MSSP MDR now, so I'd imagine that they have more than just services or
Yeah.
services, services plus that kind of thing. Yeah, I'm not going to navigate that website right now. All right, let's see what else. So a few interesting cases here. One, Thales acquired two companies at once, S21sec and Excellium, which I think are both either managed services or services organizations, both in Europe. And so we've seen this a lot. We've seen a lot of acquisition by cybersecurity product companies adding services to their roster. I think it helps to even out revenue. Like dips and stuff like that in revenue. And a lot of people buying products also need services, so
Yeah.
usually makes sense. Tons of small consulting firms out there, and a lot of them getting picked up. The other one was Pathlock acquired so the way this comes across is Pathlock merged with Appsian and Security Weaver and like two other companies, CSI Tools and SaaS Solutions. And really what this is, when you see something like that, along with a $200 million funding round, really what this is mostly Pathlock getting acquired by a private equity firm, and then that private equity firm is trying to build a bigger company by smashing together a bunch of smaller ones with a larger one.
Huh.
So very very common approach. Smashing together probably isn't the term that the financial analysts would use for that. They probably have a term for when somebody does like a group merge like this, like merges 4 or 5 companies together. We've seen that several times in the past, but yeah, a lot going on at once, and it's Vertica Capital Partners that's financing all this.
Oh wow.
And to be honest, I'm not familiar with any of these companies. Before seeing this story, so Pathlock does access governance. Appsian does ERP data security solutions. Security Weaver does governance, risk, and compliance management for SAP specifically. So this is stuff that's way outside my normal wheelhouse. Yeah, a lot of it's just GRCM and SAP type stuff.
I wonder what sort of platform they're going to try and build with that technology, or maybe what kind of product offering, you know.
Yeah, I mean it all seems to revolve around ERP and SAP. So just
Yeah.
access control, risk management. There's still a lot of companies out there that are heavily dependent on SAP, and so a lot of money to be made off of SAP security. So You do have a handful of niche vendors out there. There's not room for like a dozen vendors, but maybe 3 or 4. And yeah, obviously, Pathlock is looking to be one of those 3 or 4. Yeah, so we've seen a lot of markets like this in security, like the firewall orchestration market. Never grew past like 4 vendors. It was like, who was it? Algo. There was Firemon. There was yeah, coming back to you. Just these tools
Man,
that
that
you
was
could
so
use to
long ago.
manage firewall rules across like different brands of firewalls and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, most of that's left my brain already, but because that market has mostly pivoted or merged into other markets. They've kind of moved into the zero trust space a bit.
Right.
But yeah, and cloud and zero trust is kind of where they've moved. But yeah, this is just one of those markets. Let's see. Cipherloc acquires virtual CISO security services provider SideChannel. I only mention this because I happen to know the founder of SideChannel pretty well. This is it's going to be a pretty small deal compared to some of the other stuff we're seeing here, but not tiny. So it's a good sized deal. So it looks like Cipherloc is an encryption as a service company. That's interesting.
Huh.
Purchasing a virtual CISO service provider. Huh.
That's interesting.
I was expecting Cipherloc to be like an MSSP or something like that, but nope.
Yeah.
Their tagline is "Unlock Quantum Ready Security."
Hmm.
I give Quantum a lot of crap on this podcast.
You
So
always hear about it.
if you
It's
couldn't
always
see me,
5 years away.
if you couldn't hear me smirking, I was smirking.
Yeah.
Let's see what else is worth talking about here. In number 14, the trends here. I'd never heard of a Black Swan memo before. Kind of telling of my experience, I guess. But yeah, apparently there's quite a few of them out there. One from Y Combinator wasn't supposed to be public, but it was leaked. And basically they're saying, hey, to their portfolio companies, now would be a good time to kind of slow down your burn and tuck in and get ready for maybe not being able to raise that next round that you plan to raise. So, and most of what I've been hearing, we're going to talk about layoffs next. Is that it's not as bad as it sounds. Especially in security, like on the tech side, we're seeing companies, startups, close up shop altogether, but and broad layoffs. But we're only just starting to see a few here in security. So I don't know if those are going to pick up or if this is the most that we're going to see. Again, it's interesting. Just 2 weeks before the biggest security expo, security vendor conference in the industry, that this is starting to happen.
Right. Yeah, I mean, maybe companies, are realizing that the market isn't going to rebound as quickly as everyone was hoping. And so they have to make changes like that. It's very unfortunate.
Security, the stable coin of tech. Hopefully not, because the actual stable coins turned out not to be all that stable.
Not that stable.
Yeah, so the layoffs here, Lacework announced that they're laying off 300 employees. I remember when we talked about their $1.8 billion funding round, which valued them at $8.3 billion.
Jeez.
Yeah, that I remember when we talked about that in the show 6 months ago. I don't know what show number that is, but yeah, we were just kind of like baffled at this. And obviously they're shooting big. They're shooting to kind of lock in this CSPM market, this cloud security posture management market, which is pretty huge. CSPM seems like they're aiming to be kind of one-stop shop for anything security related you need for cloud, for containers, for managing all that stuff, for visibility, for enforcement, guardrails, that kind of thing. And yeah, I mean, we didn't see this downturn coming. I mean, a lot of people were saying like, how long are we in a bubble? How long can this go on? We had several VCs come on the show, like we're asking them, and nobody really knew, but now it's here. Layoffs are actually, that's a smart thing to do. We've seen in the tech world, some companies go under completely because they didn't do layoffs. So, I mean, laying off 20% of your workforce to survive, especially when you're that big with that kind of funding, that level of expectations, yeah, you gotta take the conservative side, when the amount of money you took wasn't all that conservative. You got to plan for the worst.
It's an unfortunate situation, but the market, the market of cloud security CSPM solutions is like in dire need of good CSPM solutions.
Mhm.
There really isn't that many. I actually just got done doing a POC.
Oh, really?
Of CSPM solutions. I mean, it was easy to pick the winner. I'll tell you that much.
They're that bad?
Yeah, it was tough. A couple of them, I was questioning how they can like sell this. How do they sell
heard that
this?
too. I've heard that too. I've heard like this isn't even MVP, which is insane given the amount of funding that some of these companies have.
Yeah, I mean, some of them I honestly felt like I was wasting my time POCing.
Wow. So
And I'd have to have like a follow-up call to be like, hey, am I actually seeing this correctly? Like there must be more here that I'm just not aware of. It's like, no, you hit it right on the nose. I'm like, guys, thanks. Okay.
So we've got I don't want you, not expecting you to name any names here, but well, at least like who is good and who is bad, right? But we've got, so we're talking about Lacework now. Off the top of my head, there's also Orca, there's Wix, or not Wix, Wiz. Wix is building websites for small businesses. Wiz, Sysdig, does Sysdig fall in here?
I don't think so. At least I didn't test them. Palo Alto has a
Prisma?
Solution. Yeah.
Prisma Cloud, yep.
CrowdStrike has one as well.
Do they?
They bought Dome 9.
Oh, right. Yeah.
That's what it was.
I remember Dome 9. That's not CSPM, I don't think.
They kind of migrated the solution in some
I haven't talked
fancy
to them in a
way.
while. Yeah.
It's weird what happened.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I basically put up. I think that there was 2 other vendors that I actually POC'd, and then there was Lacework, and Lacework kind of just mopped the floor with them.
Oh, really? They were one of the better ones?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
like by far, it was a different league.
They caught my attention because they had the most brutal anti Palo Alto marketing campaigns I've ever seen. Like the Google AdWords campaign, like, because back then I was doing a lot of I mean even today, like I do a lot of market research, and so I was Googling Palo Alto related things, and man, Lacework would come up and just trash. Acquired a bunch of companies, stuck together badly. Like it was brutal. Like they were not holding anything back. I was shocked that they went to that level, because I've worked in marketing, and like I'm like I have an opinion from like a buyer's perspective too. Like I don't like doing business with a company that'll get quite in the dirt like that. But
right.
But yeah, no, it's interesting to hear because they can't all be winners, because so many of these, like if you look at the list of, in fact, I'll bring it up. I'll bring up the list of cybersecurity unicorns as of a couple weeks ago. I refreshed this, and there are a lot of CSPMs on that list.
Yeah.
So I've blanked on what Sysdig does exactly, but they are number 17 on that list. So they're up there. Their valuation is 2.5 billion. But at the top, we've got Lacework is number 3, 8.3 billion. Then we've got Wiz with a valuation of 6 billion. They're number 6 on the list. And then Socure. I don't remember what Socure does. Digital identity verification. Okay, that's completely different. Sysdig. Orca is 1.8, so they're further down there. They're the 25th largest cybersecurity unicorn.
Wow.
1.8 billion. Yeah, there are 54 of them. 54 cybersecurity unicorns. And I'm wondering, with this whole downturn in the market, somebody was saying, well, the average amount of value that SaaS companies lost, cloud and SaaS companies lost, was 70%. So I was like, okay, what if I run that 70% loss against all 54 of these unicorns, and you're only left with 4? And it's Tanium, Sneak, Lacework, and Netscope.
Wow. Man, that's interesting. I didn't even realize that there was that many CSPM vendors on the market.
Yeah, and new ones are popping up constantly.
That space really exploded.
I was doing a review of Excel's investments, the equity firm, VC firm Excel, and they actually have 2 or 3 CSPMs in their list of portfolio companies. They're that hot.
Wow.
But yeah,
That
there's a
speaks
lot
volumes right there.
Yeah, there's a lot of early stage ones out there now. Like I think a couple of these. Yeah, so StackZone I think might kind of fit into that. I think we might have a couple fundings and new products on the list here that fit into that. And then there's a bunch of tangential stuff. So there's a lot of we're seeing a lot of startups that they're calling DSPMs, data security posture management, where the aim is to discover what kind of data you have in the cloud and kind of organize it and then or categorize it and then protect it. So kind of like a DLP for the cloud.
I wonder if I wouldn't be shocked if some of these other CSPMs like Lacework buy a solution like that to layer onto their already existing platform.
That's the value prop, right? They're all platforms, so I think they have to.
Yeah, they probably will. I'd be shocked if they didn't.
Yeah, I mean, Lacework is talking crap about how Prisma is like 5 different acquisitions pieced together. How long are we going to see them go before they start making acquisitions, right? I mean,
they're going to have to take it out of the marketing material.
It's going to be, I think it's going to be way easier to do that than to try and build DSPM and like all the other tangential stuff that comes out of this.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting when companies get bought and the products get integrated into new platforms. It can really change a product entirely depending on how it's integrated. Like are they keeping it separate? Are they taking pieces of it and porting that code into their pre-existing solution and trying to get it all to flow together? All of those things really do matter, at least to the end user. For instance, there's a product out there for proxies, and they have 4 or 5 different UIs that you have to log into to run their product, depending on what you purchase from them. It's like, guys, this needs to be one UI.
Yeah,
it needs to be streamlined. This isn't hard.
Oh yeah, tell me about it. There was generally, I think Rapid7 stuff is pretty solid, but I did a review of whatever they replaced Nexpos with, like Insight VM, I think it's called.
Oh, okay.
And there's a local scanner that you have to stand up on a server somewhere or on a VM or something like that. And then there's a SaaS portal, kind of like a Tenable.io, but not because it doesn't all live up there. Well, and Tenable's the same way too. Like depending on what you're wanting to do with that local scanner, you might have to log into the local instance or the cloud instance. And then there are links, at least for Rapid7, there were links for the, like, it doesn't tell you when you're going to be, popped out into a new tab to the cloud version from the internal version. But you just, like, if you click certain things on the left-hand menu pane, you get popped out and, so it tends to be very confusing. You end up with a whole bunch of tabs open. And I don't know if that was the result of, I don't think it was the result of an acquisition. I think it was just a result of them trying to migrate to something that's more entirely SaaS. And then Qualys has been SaaS for like over 20 years, but you use that interface and it's just absolutely ancient. The amount of clicks you have to do anything, it's way too much, in my opinion. But yeah, it's not easy to acquire a company and fold them into your product. Like it takes years in some cases.
Yeah, it's a lot of work that goes into it. Yep. I think that we forget that sometimes too. Like we want it next month. Like, oh, you just bought this solution. Well, I want it in our environment right now. It should be all tied together and everything. And at the same time, it's like, well, you don't want that in 1 month. You want us to take our time with it.
Well, there's two different kinds of acquisitions, right? Like there's the kind where really all you have to do is some rebranding and maybe some integrations with other products. And then there's acquisitions where that product is going to disappear inside another product. And those are two different levels of difficulty. So like when IBM, for example, bought QRadar, that was mostly a rebranding. It still took them like 9 months. Like they wouldn't even listen to us for 9 months until they finished. They call it blue washing when they, it's got to be like IBM has a standard where if they acquire a product, it has to be like ACA compliant. It has to be in like these languages, these 9 languages. It has to, like, there's all these standards and branding standards and accessibility standards and all this stuff that has to be applied to it. It takes a long time to build all that stuff into it. You could have alt text on all the images, I guess. I don't know, but it's yeah, two different kinds there. And with CSPM, I think most of these acquisitions are going to be the, like merge the products completely. Rather than it being a new standalone product that they're selling access to.
Right.
Which is much easier, just throwing a new logo on stuff, changing the CSS colors or something like that, is a lot different from actually building it into the product. Cause there's that back end too. Front end, back end, API, like you mentioned, UI.
There's a lot to it.
Yep. The other company that had layoffs was Tripwire, which apparently Belden sold off to, and we did cover this on a show, Help Systems, who has bought up, like, I don't know if you're familiar with Help Systems, but they've bought something like 30 security companies over the last couple of years.
Wow.
Like the number of acquisitions, I think, is over 30 now. Jeez. And just this year, I think they've bought 6 or 7 at least. And Tripwire is one of those. Bought it from Belden, which seemed like a weird acquisition anyway, because Belden is more like a ICS OT company. I'm trying to remember what they do, but it's way outside what Tripwire does.
I think PayPal also went through some layoffs this week.
Oh yeah, I don't doubt it. Yeah, the lists of layoffs are pretty huge.
Yeah, it's growing.
I think the website is layoffs.fyi. Has like a list of all of them, is dedicated to that. But yeah, bought Tripwire for $350 million, 450 employees, and they've laid off a couple dozen of them. But yeah, the thing that's really bad though is with that Lacework one, like they're saying they're hearing reports of the actual layoffs being handled really badly, where like people aren't even sure if they still have a job or not, and like the way that they find out they don't have a job is when their emails bounce, like that. you
Jeez.
know, yeah, you got to get communications. Like nobody likes to lay people off, but you got to do it right. Like I've seen so
Yeah,
many
that's
layoffs where the news is how they find out that they lost their job or that the company's gone or whatever.
that's crazy. I've heard, with some companies doing it, they'll invite, a whole bunch of people to a Zoom meeting and tell them like, if you're in this meeting, you're fine. And
Yeah.
it's like, geez, man, like that's I don't know. What's a good solution for that?
Well, I mean, the company has full control over how they do those communications. So the right way to do it is you do kind of need to time it all at once. So the I'm not the right one to ask, but
Yeah.
I've seen plenty of cases where like if there's a good severance and stuff like that, and you know, ideally you want managers to go tell people in person, you schedule some in-person meetings with folks, and it's going to suck no matter what. Like at some point, like people are going to know, okay, layoffs are happening. Is it going to be me? And there's going to be some
Oh,
period of employees, stressing out at their desks, or at home or whatever, watching their phone, waiting for their turn to hear the news. But at least if you can offer some severance, it takes the edge off that hit. But yeah, there are right ways and wrong ways to do it.
yeah, that's for sure.
So hopefully that's not representative of everybody. Maybe it's just a few groups, but it's a lot of people. What was it? 200
Yeah.
people? 300 employees. Yeah.
Wow.
Which is 20% of their workforce. So their Lacework is pretty big.
It kind of reflects a little poorly on them because they took all that money,
Yeah.
last year. And so it's like, guys, what do you mean you can't afford this? Like from this perspective, it's like, what do you mean you can't afford it? But they're preparing for down the line.
But that's the game though. Like when you make big moves, you have to make them in both
Right.
directions.
Yeah.
Like it's when you take $1.8 billion and you're trying to burn that cash in exchange for growth, like that's a big truck to stop. like like that's a lot of momentum, and yeah, you're gonna, if you get it wrong and timing isn't great, which some of that you don't have control over, it's just the market, it's just the state of the market. um, then yeah, you're gonna have to hit those brakes hard, which means laying off some employees.
Yeah.
So yeah, not necessarily, like, yeah, I mean, it sounds terrible. Hopefully, they're handling it better than the rumors say they are. But overall, like, if I were a customer of Lacework, that's a good sign. Like, we know the market's rough. Like, I would rather see somebody do the responsible thing and do some layoffs rather than bet the whole company on all 1,500 employees losing their job, right, and the whole company
Yeah.
going under. So that's the alternative if you don't get this
Yeah.
right.
That's true.
Yeah. We did talk in the previous segment about the U.S. Justice Department pinky swearing not to go after well-intentioned hackers, after researchers. Um, I don't know if there's anything more. Like, I keep joking about a pinky promise, but I didn't really see any really, anything in writing,
Right.
or it counts for something. I'm just not sure how much. Let's put it
Yeah,
that way.
it's hard to tell. That I mean, that's probably I think that's the main reason why I didn't go down, the research path because I I don't want any risk of me spending time behind bars.
Yeah.
You know, even if I knew what I was doing, the customer knew what I was doing, all that sort of stuff. It's just like
Even as a pen
just too
tester,
risky.
like those guys from Coalfire, got to, they
Yeah.
spent more than a few nights in jail.
Yeah.
In Oklahoma, was it?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. So, study plan here. We've got a link to a GitHub repo that has study plans for AWS security, GCP security, Azure security. Looks like some good stuff potentially in there. Something I saw somebody share. Looks like they're still working at it. A couple of these links I clicked on did not contain study plans. Go to file. How many of these are blank?
That's interesting.
I must be missing something.
Maybe
yeah, because it's there. I think his links are bad in the main README file. I think those links are bad because in the actual list of files, if you click the Markdown files, the study plan is there. Okay. I was about to have to retract this and delete it off the stories, but no, it's just I think he needs to update some links. He or she.
Yeah.
I don't know who's behind this, but yeah, some good good resource there that I'm going to save because there's a lot of stuff here that I need to do some learning and catching up on.
Yeah, there's a lot to learn, a lot to know, especially with the cloud.
Yeah, and they've got AWS, GCP, Azure, DevSecOps, Docker, Kubernetes, pen testing, app security testing, API security, network security, and just common skills for security. So 11 different study plans there. Some good references. Looks like some good advice there. They've got samples of resumes. So it looks like, and there's a lot of good resources for folks looking to get into security or to pivot into a new role or something like that. And this is just one of many that are kind of good compilations of good resources for learning and studying.
Yeah, if you're trying to get into security, you like can't do enough. You can't learn enough. You need to learn as much as you can, do as much as you can to really increase your chances of getting your break.
I mean, that's why a lot of us, I mean, me personally, and a lot of people I've met, that's why we like it, is because, it's the never ending scroll of dopamine feeding information. You're never done learning in it, which is kind of perfect if you have that kind of brain that's just endlessly curious and just wants to keep learning. And finally,
that definitely describes me. Sorry.
Yeah. I find it's more often than not kind of fits our personalities. And finally, Harpo Crate's pitch deck. This is Kelly Shortridge, who the queen of snark, and the put together kind of a sarcastic post, put it on LinkedIn, and there's always some people that kind of miss the sarcasm. They it's like people that taste soap when they eat cilantro. Like some people just don't have the gene that allows them to understand satire, and hilarious. She's basically tearing apart this pitch deck, and which is what she does. Like that's one of the services she provides to the industry is her hot takes on bad startups and bad startup moves, and yeah, it's just admin. It's absolutely it's more funny once you realize that it is satire, but it's absolutely hilarious, and it's Pete Kelly Shortridge form, so worth a read. Too bad that some people I hope she's not worrying about it too much. I don't want her to stop with her hot takes because I enjoy them a lot. But yeah, I don't know if some people from the company got offended or something like that. I don't know the full story. But
I mean, even if you didn't say that it was satire, like, I would surely hope it was a joke. You know, like just looking at the title, I'd be like, I really hope this is a joke. And then you go into it, it's like, yeah, of course this is a joke.
yeah. Yeah. Harpo crates. I'm guessing that's a take on Hippocrates. I don't know.
Oh, maybe.
Good stuff. All right. Well, that's all the stories for today. I don't think. Let me take one last look. I don't think I was going to dive too deep into any of these other ones here. Lima Charlie's kind of an interesting one. I'll just say something real quick about Lima Charlie. I don't fully understand how they're doing this, but they're calling it a security infrastructure as a service model, where it sounds like they're kind of stitching together. I don't know if they're building all this in house or if they're white labeling existing products. Yeah, elegantly combines top of the line security products with friendly APIs, easy configurability, usage based pricing, and white box transparency. So yeah, it's like a white labeling layer. So basically, it makes commercial products easier to purchase and to deploy using APIs.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. I saw one like this a ways back that was cloud focused, where basically they had, you would log into an interface and you could just click subscribe on McAfee, and now you own McAfee. Like from month to month, you could just subscribe and unsubscribe to all these different security services, and it would give you the licensing, it would give you access to it, and just and add it into your environment.
Like in the marketplace.
Yeah, blanking on the name of it, but yeah, really interesting take. I think also because it kind of saves you having to proof of concept everything and to go out and figure out how to implement everything. I think it's an interesting service. It's just, I imagine the tricky part is getting the vendors to agree to either white labeling or letting you resell their services this way. You got to have some kind of reseller agreement with each of these commercial products. So, but yeah, pretty much everything these days needs to be plunk in a credit card and month to month, right? Like it's just not, but it should be, because our needs are constantly changing. Environments are constantly changing. Nobody wants to be locked into a 3-year contract on a security product.
Yeah, those contracts are frustrating if you get the wrong product.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I've been there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mostly when joining a company and you're like, oh no, you just bought this.
Yeah. There's some solutions out there that I won't name that whenever I'm in interviews, got to ask, hey, do you have these?
Oh, in the interview, that's very forward.
Just got to make sure. Got to be upfront, because I already know that disaster. I want to avoid it.
If you guys are a Lacework shop, I don't know. I can give them crap because you said they were good, so that balances it out.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You said they had a competent product. All right, Joe. Thanks so much for joining me today on Enterprise Security Weekly.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
I appreciate you jumping in and helping out. And one more week next week. We'll be back with Enterprise Security Weekly for the week before RSA, but we'll not have one during the week of RSA. And I'll be out there myself. So I hope to see you there. And big thanks to everybody listening or watching today. We'll see you next week.